You were hit by a truck, and now the company's acting like it's not their problem. They're pointing fingers at the driver, a maintenance shop, and anyone but themselves. I'm Tim Miley. I've handled truck accident cases across West Virginia for over 2 decades, and I can tell you, companies can be held responsible, but only if you know where to look. In this video, I'll break down 3 ways trucking companies can be forced to pay you after a crash, even if they're trying to hide behind the driver, so you don't get buried in medical bills while the company that caused the damage walks away untouched. Holding companies responsible through their truck drivers. Let's start with the first and often the most direct way companies can be forced to pay you after a truck accident in West Virginia, and that is by holding them responsible for the driver's actions. This is called vicarious liability, but don't worry about that term. What's important is this: if a truck driver causes a crash while doing their job, the company that employs them can be held legally and financially responsible for your injuries. Picture this: you're driving on I-81 near Martinsburg, minding your own business. Suddenly, a big commercial truck swerves into your lane and causes a serious wreck. Later, you find out the driver was rushing to meet a delivery schedule that was set by their company. Maybe they were even running low on sleep because their boss pushed them to drive longer than they should have. That's where West Virginia law works in your favor. If the driver was working, meaning they were on the clock, or doing their job, the trucking company is on the hook. It doesn't matter if the driver was an hourly employee or paid by the mile. If they were doing company business, the company stands behind them. Here's why that matters. Trucking companies usually have much bigger insurance policies and more assets than their drivers. If you only went after the driver personally, you might never see the compensation you need for your hospital bills, lost wages, or pain and suffering. By making the company pay, you stand a much better chance of getting a fair settlement or court award. West Virginia courts have made this clear. Imagine a driver named Sam, employed by Mountain State Freight. Sam falls asleep behind the wheel because his company pressured him to skip legally required rest breaks. If Sam causes a crash, Mountain State Freight can be forced to pay you, not just Sam. This is true even if Sam didn't mean to cause any harm. The company is responsible for what happens when its business is on the road. Plain and simple. Now, this principle doesn't just apply to big trucking companies either. It covers delivery services, local contractors, even companies that own their own trucks for hauling equipment. As long as the driver was doing their job when the crash happened, the company can be held accountable. Of course, sometimes companies fight back, and you should expect them to, by claiming the driver was acting outside their job. For example, claiming they were making a personal stop or running an errand. That's why it's so important to have a knowledgeable attorney who can dig into the facts, get the truck's records, and prove the driver was on company time. If you or your loved one has been hit by a commercial truck, the first step is finding out who owns that truck, who employs the driver, and whether the driver was working. That's something our team handles in every case because it's the fastest path to real accountability and real compensation. Number 2, forcing companies to pay for unsafe trucks or policies. The second way companies can be forced to pay you after a truck accident is if their trucks are unsafe or if they have dangerous policies that put you and everyone else on the road in real danger. Here's how it works. Trucking companies have a legal duty to make sure their trucks are safe and their drivers are qualified and rested. But sometimes in the rush to make money, companies cut corners. They might send trucks out with bald tires, overweight loads, or brakes out of adjustment. Or they might look the other way when a driver skips rest breaks or even falsifies their driving logs. These shortcuts are illegal and they put people in real danger. Let's look at a real-world example. Imagine an oil and gas truck in Doddridge County that keeps putting off brake repairs to keep their trucks rolling. One rainy evening, their worn-out brakes fail, and a loaded truck slides into traffic, causing a pileup. Even if the driver did everything right, the company can be forced to pay for injuries caused by its failure to keep the truck properly maintained. That's because in West Virginia, companies are required by law to properly maintain their vehicles and follow all federal safety rules. It's not just about the trucks either. Companies are also responsible if their policies or practices put drivers in a position where accidents are all but guaranteed. For instance, if a company pays drivers by the load and encourages them to drive longer hours than the law allows, that's a recipe for disaster. Federal rules limit the number of hours truck drivers can be on the road. For one simple reason: exhausted drivers make deadly mistakes. Maybe you've heard about drivers having to keep 2 sets of logbooks. one real and one fake, to hide how long they've been behind the wheel. If a company is caught encouraging or ignoring this kind of behavior, they can be held responsible, plain and simple. Let me tell you about a past client. We'll call her Lisa, who was rear-ended by a delivery truck from a national chain. Our team dug into the records and found the company had ignored multiple warnings about that truck's bad brakes. It wasn't necessarily the driver's fault because they didn't always drive the same truck. The blame landed squarely on the company that owned and operated that truck. Because we proved they'd ignored their duty to fix serious safety problems, they were forced to pay for Lisa's injuries, her lost wages, and months of physical therapy. West Virginia law gives people like Lisa protection against unsafe business practices. When a company's actions or inaction put people at risk, they can and should be held financially responsible. That's not just about getting justice for you, but it's about making sure these companies don't cut corners in the future and put someone else in harm's way. 3. Proving company negligence through investigation and evidence. The third way companies can be forced to pay you after a truck accident is through solid investigation, by proving with hard evidence that the company's own carelessness or bad decisions caused the crash. After an accident, the trucking company's insurance team gets to work fast. Their job is to protect the company's bottom line and not your well-being. That's why it's so important to level the playing field. Here's how you do that: by collecting evidence that shows exactly what went wrong and who's responsible. A strong investigation can uncover all sorts of problems, things the company hoped you'd never find out about. For example, maintenance records. These can show if the company skipped regular repairs or inspections on the truck. Maybe those worn-out tires were reported by drivers month after month, but no one at the company fixed them. Driver qualification files. West Virginia and federal law require companies to check that their drivers have valid commercial driver's licenses, that they have no serious traffic violations, and that they are in good health. If they put someone behind the wheel who shouldn't have been driving, that's on them. Black box data. Most modern trucks have electronic data recorders, basically the truck's black box, that records speed, braking, and hours on the road. This information can prove if the company allowed or even pressured the driver to break safety rules. Dispatch records and company emails. Sometimes, paper trails show that the company knew about a dangerous situation, but they ignored it. Maybe a dispatcher told the driver to just get the load there no matter what. Surveillance footage and witness statements. Camera footage or eyewitnesses can fill in gaps, like how the crash happened or whether the driver seemed alert or distracted. I remember one case where all the blame was being put on the driver, but our team found emails showing the company demanded impossible delivery deadlines. The driver had raised these safety concerns more than once, but the company threatened to cut his pay if he didn't keep up. That evidence made the difference. The company was forced to pay not just for medical bills, but also for the pain and suffering caused by their reckless approach. Investigations like this take time, resources, and know-how. The company will never just hand over this evidence willingly. You have to demand it. Sometimes using court orders. That's where having the right team on your side makes all the difference. You might be wondering, can I really take on a big trucking company? My answer is yes, especially if you act quickly and work with someone who knows how these companies operate. In West Virginia, you have every right to demand they pay up when their choices change your life. Why these 3 ways matter for you and your family. Now let's bring it all together. After a truck accident, you may be facing some of the toughest days of your life. Mounting medical bills, time away from work, physical pain, and a lot of uncertainty. The trucking company and their insurance team will try to settle fast and cheap, or maybe even deny blame altogether. But West Virginia law gives you real tools to hold companies accountable and force them to do what's right. Here's what we've covered. Number 1, you can force the company to pay by proving their driver caused the crash while working. Number 2, you can force them to pay if their trucks or safety policies broke the law or put people in danger. And number 3, you can force them to pay by uncovering solid evidence of their negligence or bad decisions. Each of these strategies works best when you act quickly, before vital evidence gets lost or, in some cases, destroyed. If you or someone you love has been hit by a commercial truck, don't wait. Get advice, protect your rights, and make sure you're not left holding the bag for someone else's mistakes. If you found this helpful, you need to check out our next video. What to do in a car accident when the other driver has no insurance. Most people have no idea what their options are until it's too late. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. It could save you thousands and get you back on your feet a lot faster. See you over there.